Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another Survivor 50 preseason podcast. My name is Mike Bloom, and I'm giving you what you need to know about the cast of Survivor 50. Today, we are talking about a player who perhaps stood head and shoulders above a lot of her competition in Survivor 48. Not literally necessarily, but big presences sometimes come in small packages. We experienced that very recently with one of the standout players of Survivor 48, Kamilla Karthigesu. I'm extremely intrigued to talk about Camila, someone who was on the brains and the mouths of a lot of these players, but a couple weeks before they went out to play 50. How is the new Camila going to inform her new impressions in front of her tribe mates, or will she default back into, the Camila that started the game? Certainly having a couple familiar faces there might certainly stir up the waters. But of course, we're going to be talking a lot of K's today. We'll be talking Camilla. We'll be talking Kyle. So to welcome in another K name who's got the K babes at her legion, it is Kirsten MacInnis.
Hello, I'm here. I'm on the heels of being extremely wrong in my Traders preseason podcast. So hopefully I can be a little bit better this time.
Nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, literally the bar is in hell for me personally.
So I'm intrigued, Kirsten, to hear your reaction to the 50 cast, in particular the Survivor 48 contingent, because there's been a lot talked about how in the past with Survivor, a lot of returning player seasons do like to pull from the past couple of instances. It's a lot of what have you done for me lately? And there certainly has been a lot of talk of 3 from 48. What was your reaction to that? Are you in the same boat there? And where does Camilla fall, I would say, amidst those 3?
Yeah, so even just overall, I think they took an interesting direction with the season 50 cast just in general of they kind of tried to please everyone and as a result please no one is kind of the vibe I get. And when we did the season by season going through the wish list for Survivor 50, I said it then and I still feel now I really wanted it to be a second chances 2 season. The only person who's allowed to play as many times as they want in my heart is Suri. Everyone it could have been second chances and Suri, and that would have been better for me. And so I think a lot of people were upset that there was so much new era representation, whereas to me, I'm I don't care. It could have been all new era representation as long as it was people who were good and had played once. That's not what bothers me. Having 3 from 48, it feels wild. It really does. But then when you think about just how big this cast is, and I feel like Jeff really liked season 48, right?
Yeah.
So he loved the season. It was airing and not everyone was having as good of a time as Jeff Probst, but of course he's going to go into that well and bring out, key people. And I think that out of everyone they could have brought back from 48, Camilla would have been my number 1 with a bullet. Yes, please bring her back. She was so engaging and interesting. And she had been cast on Survivor and went in with a goal of playing just a completely different game than how she was constrained in season 48, just by the nature of it being we're big, we're strong, and we're loyal. She was ready to play in a way that is maybe more typical of an all-star season. And so her getting that opportunity is extremely exciting, though I do worry for her considering they just watched the finale where everyone at Final Tribal Council raised their hands and said, I would have voted for Camilla if she was there.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you were saying in that on paper, I feel like specifically what Jeff has talked about in terms of the things he loved most about Survivor 48 is represented through the 3 people that he's chosen. Loves Joe and Eva, says that they're some of his favorite players of all time. So, of course, Joe getting a call back here is no surprise. And he also talked up the idea of this other secret duo, though. Again, your mileage may vary depending on who you're talking to from Survivor 48 as to how secret the duo was, but that was one of the major running storylines. They take it all the way down to the Final 4 when they decide to sort of amicably split. And so it does make sense to have, especially as you mentioned, a season that Jeff loves. He mentioned it as one of his top 25 seasons to me in an article last year, that he would want to have sort of both storylines represented there. But the big thing is, as you mentioned, Camilla's perception coming into this? Because on the one hand, I do agree, and we'll certainly get into this with her story, that like there is this big looming idea of Star Toomey, God bless her soul, talking at that after show, being like, oh yeah, if Camilla made it to the final three, she would have beat anybody, no matter what. I'm sure nobody said that with even an inkling of thought that 1 year later, a bunch of people would have their eyes glued to the screen, getting ready to fly to Fiji, watching that assessment be made. On the other side of things, I think you bring up a really good point in that Camilla did not play the game that she wanted to in season. The one of the major things she told me in the preseason of 48 was that she wanted to sort of manufacture a fluid post merge. That was an environment in which she thrived in the most. This was one of the least fluid post merges we have seen in the new era. It was cement like almost, with maybe a couple of cracks loosening up towards the end. And so while people might expect Camilla to behave one way, this could ideally, hopefully, considering the caliber of player that are being brought in for 50, represent the type of environment she wanted to play Survivor in the first place.
100%. And she also had mentioned really loving those like kooky, silly, like unserious characters. And so where do those characters go? They go to Survivor 50. So I do feel like as much as it's concerning that her threat level is so big going in, everybody's threat level is really big going into 50. And I think that she has demonstrated skills to maneuver within that space. And I think that she has a lot of options. I just have so much faith in her to be able to socially maneuver through with honestly any given group of people, considering how well she did with, as you said, like such a rigid group last time.
All right, well, let's get a bit into what that skill set was, what we were introduced to when it comes to Camilla and her own sort of like mini metamorphosis through Survivor 48. Kirsten, what is the story of Camilla?
So Camilla comes in. She's small in stature. She's unsure of herself. You know, she really comes in kind of nervous. And she immediately makes a connection with Kyle that, again, your mileage may vary on how much you think that was hidden or not hidden. But the narrative of the season was that nobody realized how close they were at any point, really. She emerges as one of the best puzzle solvers that we have seen. Like, I think that she's up there with Rachel, I think, for her puzzle skills.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, people may not remember, obviously these players will, but like the immunity challenge she wins at the final 5 is a massive comeback. I know that we just witnessed, Soph do one in Survivor 49. It was very similar to that, where the obstacle course portion of the challenge, Camilla is way, way, way in the back, and she just completely blasts through the entire competition when she actually gets up that ramp.
Exactly, yeah. So she just and that puzzle skill was really helpful to her in the tribe portion of the game, where she was able to complete a lot of key puzzles for her tribe. She is like one of the biggest confessionals that I remember of Camilla, and why I love her is when she's talking about, the big strong guy alliance that David is really pushing, with Joe and Eva and Kyle and all of that. And she says, if you want to compete physically, go to the Olympics. Why are you on Survivor? That's not what this game is. And so she just brought that energy to the confessionals while still not being necessarily off-putting to this big strong alliance. And she makes it down to the final 4 as someone who's not one of the big strong guys, someone who's not preaching loyalty and integrity. And she loses because of the magnesium that she's shed. Like, that's why Camilla loses the game. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also quite literally the elements were at play as well. I mean, there's so much wind that gets factored into the fire making challenge. I think she also had said stuff about like people were hanging around the well, and so she didn't really have as much time to practice as she wanted to. But I mean, when we talk about kind of disseminating some of her biggest moves, I mean, it's tough to sometimes sort of like extricate her game from Kyle's, because some of the biggest moves that both of them made were really done in tandem. And I think one of the biggest ones is in the pre-merge. There's a swap, a rarity for the new era. Kyle and Camilla are on paper completely swap screwed. It is the two of them versus not only three people from one tribe, but arguably three of the tightest people from one tribe in the California girls, Joe, Shaheen, and Thomas. And so the good news is these two have advantages. Kyle has an idol, Kamilla has an extra vote. But they need to make sure that the votes go in a particular way to make sure that they use them properly. They don't even know that Thomas had gotten a vote steal on the journey as well. And so what they do is go to work in essentially convincing these guys that despite getting swapped over together, they cannot stand one another, that they would never work together. They haven't been working together. They will never work together. And so they are able to bring Kamilla in on the plan, right? And be like, okay, you vote for Kyle. Let's just pile it all on Kyle, make it easy peasy. And so that allows Kamilla and Kyle to go completely over the top, be able to take out a big threat in Thomas. It is, I think people are saying, one of the best pre-merge episodes we've seen in New Era Survivor. And again, these two will be able to make these types of moves down the line as well. But this was, I think, was the really big first hint of like, Kamilla is somebody who knows how to wield advantages, but also knows how to like wield the unsuspecting nature of who she is and the relationship she has.
Yeah, and I think that it's hard to define like, oh, Kamilla made big, like these are big moves, because I think that Camilla's gameplay specifically kind of lives in the shadows, and it's these small adjustments and like decisions that she makes every single day that put her in a position to be able to manufacture a blindside of Thomas, or when they completely manipulated Joe into voting Shaheen later in the game. Like it's not like she wakes up one morning and she's like, today we're doing a blindside and now it's going to happen. It's like she is making those intentional choices every single day with her relationships and her social standing that allow her to do that. And I don't know, I also do think just like she's small, and I feel like people are like kind of inclined to trust like small, cute people sometimes. And I feel like she uses that against them. And I love that she kind of wields that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess what would you say is her biggest strength then? Is it what we were just talking about, the ability to, again, sort of manipulate that perception of her to be able to work behind the scenes?
I think that's a big part of it, but I think that her superpower might kind of be adaptability, because I feel like she saw like everyone goes in with a plan. She had a plan. She wanted that fluidity. And when she saw that the structure of the game was not aligned with the game she wanted to play, she was able to make that shift and do something else. And I think that is, I mean, I think it also kind of like she works in the tech industry. I feel like you have to be extremely adaptable in that as well. Like there's layoffs and everything changes, and suddenly this is the new technology. Like I feel like the adaptability is probably her strongest trait, and I think that is one of the most important, other than grip strength, that might be the most important thing to bring to Survivor.
Well, what about on the other side of things? I mean, we have certainly talked about the perception of Kamilla, how it might be quite oppositional to, how people were perceiving her out on the island proper. But is there another like flaw you found in Camilla's 48 game that might carry over into 50?
I just think it's going to be so different. Like, maybe I'm biased. I don't think Kamilla really had flaws in her game, right? Like, I just think that her game was so good and so strong.
What did you make of the decision at the Final Four, where it was essentially, Kamilla and Kyle both basically saying, that we know what's going to happen. Neither one of us can make it we both can't make it to the end together. Let's try to go against each other, whether it be fire, whether it be a challenge, and whichever person goes to the jury, try to stump for the other as best as possible. And it seems like she does. She's the one that really sets up that alley-oop at the final tribal council to have Kyle sort of pants Joe in front of the jury and talk about how he tricked him into voting out Shaheen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that's a mistake to have that open and frank discussion. But to me, like, I just think that's even more of a strength. Like, she saw all the pieces on the board so clearly that she knew this is her path forward. And like, yeah, we know ultimately, if she had been taken to the final 3, she probably still would have won. But like, there's been many seasons where being taken to the final 3 makes you completely ineligible for votes at final tribal council. And so I don't think that was a mistake. I think that it just even further exemplified how well she saw the game and knew her chances, Kyle's like they were aware of everyone's winner equity.
All right, well, let's get into some hard and fast facts about Kamilla. Kamilla is 32 years old, as we mentioned before, 4th place in season 48. She won 5 challenges in the pre-merge, 3 challenges in the post-merge. And Kirsten, this is something we should bring up as well. She is one of a rarefied number of Survivor contestants to never get voted against her throughout her time in the game. The only time she could leave is when there was no ability to vote for anybody. So you can't exactly call it the perfect game because she didn't make her way to the final tribal council, but it's about as perfect as you can be for someone who gets eliminated before the final 3.
Exactly. Like, it's like, what more could she have done? And correct me if I'm wrong, because again, like, some of these new era seasons do be blending together a little bit, you know? I feel like even at the points where she won immunity, it wasn't like, if she hadn't won, she absolutely would have been voted out. I think
the exception might be final 5, but I feel
perhaps
like
at 5.
But I think Mitch was also, people felt he was going to be such a big threat in terms of his story and likability in the final 3 that like it wasn't a complete pivot to another plan, from my perspective at least.
Yeah, to me, if Mitch had won and not her, then that's really like the big problem at 5. So I guess that would have been the one thing. But then she clutched it out. She came back from an absolutely massive lead that literally everyone else had over her. She comes in, she spanks them on the puzzle. Like, it's like if she hadn't won the challenge, Joe might still be in Fiji trying to do it. Like, let's be so clear.
All right, well, let's talk about Kyle, Joe, and the rest of the Survivor 50 cast. But of course, we have to start with what's familiar to Kamilla, perhaps a bit too familiar. Her and Kyle being out here together. It is something that she talked about in her Dalton Ross cover story. I will tease a bit of my personal interviews as well, that this was not something Kamilla was entirely enthused about because she felt this was going to put a massive target on their backs. Not only are they coming in from the same season, but they are one of the most successful duos in the new era. What do you think is going to happen with these two people from an external and internal perspective?
Yeah, so I do think having Kyle and Kamilla together is a huge obstacle for both of them, because Kyle comes in as a winner. He's a huge threat. People saw that he has an extremely well-rounded game, and I think will feel very threatened by that. And so if they can't, like, I don't know if they'll be on the same tribe or different tribes or whatever, but like, say they're on different tribes, Kyle's tribe wins immunity and Kamilla's doesn't, it might be an easy vote to say, let's vote off Kamilla to weaken Kyle in the future, right?
Yeah, that's my biggest worry, I think, is this idea of like more so what she represents than what she actually is.
Yeah. Which I hate that. Like, that would be the absolute worst way for Kamilla to go out in this game, in my opinion, because it, like, at least base it off of her. It can't be, like, it gets so annoying when there's a duo of a man and a woman, and then it's always like the man is treated as a player and the woman is treated as an accessory. And so if she were to go out being treated in that way, I'd be furious because we've seen the evidence. She's not an accessory. She is a player with a capital P, right? If they're on the same tribe, at least she could maybe throw him out ahead of her, but like, it's still not good. And I know in exit press for Survivor 48, they were kind of, I feel like Kyle especially was really trying to minimize the extent of his relationship with Kamilla.
I know Kyle was the one, they were both kind of putting forward this narrative like, well, we only would like talk for like 40 seconds in the jungle every day, then go our separate ways. We'll talk about this with the next person, but Kamilla has also said that she was actually really tight with Joe and purposely underplayed their relationship in the exit press to make sure that like people coming into 50 wouldn't immediately be informed about how tight they were, which like, listen, people, I'm not a puppet, okay? I'm not a conduit, us intrepid reporters to use to help accomplish your preseason deeds. I will admire the ingenuity, but I feel used, Kirsten.
Well, and you were, and look at that, just a little bit more social maneuvering from Kamilla that we can display. Like, I just don't know how much people bought that. Like, I think that maybe with the Joe connection, people will not see that as much because, like, my impression as someone who doesn't consume that much of the exit press is at the end of 48, I felt like Joe was a broken man, and I felt like Camilla and Kyle had dog walked him, and that would be like a really tough thing to overcome. So it's a little bit more believable to me that people might think, yeah, Joe and Camilla do not get along. They have completely different philosophies and they're not close. Like I could see people believing that. I don't think that was working with the Kyle. Like the whole edit of the show was Kyle and Camilla, they have found out they have a lot in common, and now they are this dynamic duo that will take all of your faves out of this game. Like, no one is gonna think anything else. Like it's very sweet that they tried.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Joe of it all, because again, on the one hand, if apparently Camilla feels she is in tight with Joe, that's great, because like you said, they could sort of use that smoke screen of like, she didn't vote for him in the end. She was helping, lead him to engineer some ousters that maybe were not the best for his game. On the other hand, I feel like Joe could be feeling a certain way. Like, I think he probably was tight with Camilla on the island. I think there's a very fair chance that he watched back what happened on Survivor 48. And even when he was told in the moment, like he was snowed into Thomas, into Shaheen, it's one thing to hear about it. It's another thing to watch it, and to watch it happen only a couple weeks before you play. This could be a bit of an unrequited relationship.
Yeah, I have some concern. Like, just what we know about Joe is Joe really wears his heart on his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
Joe prides himself on loyalty and trust and honor and all of those things. And so I don't know, maybe he could be friends with Camilla outside of the game, but I could see him being like, but in the game, we are enemies and we have always been enemies, and there is not a working relationship. Like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like, fool me 3 times, like, dude, stop fooling him. It's getting mean at this point. Like,
well, let's start looking outside of the people that she played alongside. Hopefully some people she'll play alongside in 50 here. Now, you talked about Camilla being one to love the wackadoodles, as maybe one person would put it, across Survivor history. Do you think those are going to be people that she'll actually want to align with, or more so like the, hey, it's fun to just observe them as general humans?
My hope is that she does not want to work with them, because I think she has so many different options here. Like, I see, like, Cirie is not someone who has historically been, intimidated by working with other strong strategic women. Yep. And so I feel like there's a very natural connection there. Obviously, Cirie and Aubrey were very close on Game Changers, and Aubrey also fits that super strategic female role. I could see her sliding in there. I could see people like Angelina and Emily and Genevieve. Like, I feel like I see a very beautiful future of many of these women all wanting to work together, like, at least to a point, as well as, like, I think that Christian really values somebody who is strategic, and maybe Camilla could fulfill that Gabby role for him a little bit. And I don't know. I'm just like Jonathan, at least she has a lot of experience with Jonathan types, right?
So that's the thing, is that, as you mentioned, Camilla can pretty much vibe with everybody, but I do feel like if you talk about like her people, right, the nerds, the brainier types, they are more plentiful in this season than a 48. And so, yeah, I could totally see her, being able to geek out about the game and beyond with somebody like Christian, with somebody like Emily, with somebody like Genevieve. I could also see her and Savannah really vibing. Obviously, Camilla doesn't know a lot about Savannah's game, but I feel like, both of them are these kind of, again, underestimated, smaller women who were able to impress in multiple ways. And I think that I don't think Savannah is necessarily, kind of like Cirie, not intimidated to work with people that she considers big players. So I could see them actually link up as well.
For me, Savannah and Kamilla is the one where I'm like, they will either love each other or they will hate each other's gut. Like, I feel like I can't see them just being cordial. And because they obviously do have a lot in common, as you just outlined, but then it's also so different because, you know, Savannah was much more so the physical challenges, the balance, all of the stuff that Pilates really prepares you for, whereas Camilla was all the things that like math class prepares you for. So like that's a little bit different. Not necessarily that would keep them from getting along. I just like I think that's just kind of Savannah in general. I feel like people love her or they hate her guts.
Well, let's go to perhaps the latter when it comes to possible enemies of Camilla. Do you think of any particular people who might immediately look at her and say, I just watched season 48. We cannot give this person any breathing room?
I think that there will be friction with Colby and Camilla is something that I'm kind of seeing. But I feel like for someone who maybe just watched 48 and is very concerned about that archetype, I could see Rick Devens being a little bit of it's a thing to where it's like Rick Devens has that like nerdy side as well. And so like they could connect, but I could see him being one of the more kind of wolfy people in that group that is like, yes, I like her and we can get along, but like she's a big threat and we should throw her out.
I feel like some of Camilla's most ardent supporters and biggest detractors will come from the new era. Because I feel like the new era ethos, right, is like find who the big threat is and get rid of them immediately. You know, 48 is one of the rare examples of like, hey, this person's a threat to me. I want to work alongside them for as long as I can and sort of undermine them through these micro decisions until the end. Otherwise, it's like, hey, this person's a giant threat to win, clip them right now. And so I do have some fear that if people feel like, again, Camilla could be this dangerous player, like I could see D going for Camilla.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. But I also, like, I should just hope all of these new era players can maybe click the pieces together in their head of like, yes, it's a 26-day season, but this is different than what we've been doing. And we maybe should be making different choices to keep ourselves safer.
I mean, I would agree with that. On the other hand, they have no other experience outside of what they played, right? So it's like, that's the interesting thing is that, you know, you look at like the top 2 rows here in this graphic, you know, 7 of them have come back to play multiple times. Everyone from Chrissy and below has not. And so I really am intrigued the more we talk about these things to wonder, like, how is the experience level when it comes to returning player seasons in particular going to affect the way each person approaches this?
Yeah, and I also wonder just like how much even watching past all returning player seasons will also indicate, like, because I do think like these are smart, capable people. I think they can recognize like this is a different season and this is not the same. We're not all on the same playing field like we maybe were when we came in as a new era cast, right? And so I just guess it all comes down to, for each individual player, how they are going to express themselves through their game and how their games will be able to like how that expression interrelates, even more so than like the actual way that they end up playing. Like I think that how they talk about wanting to play at the start is going to kind of build the ethos of Survivor 50.
All right. Well, I want you to express yourself, Kirsten MacInnis, one more time with a final but incredibly important question. Why will Camilla win Survivor 50?
Camilla will win Survivor 50 because she is smart, adaptable, and is able to zoom out and see the entire board, not just the small bit that isn't directly in front of her.
Okay. I love it. I mean, I will admit, cards up, when I look at the 3 people from Survivor 48, Camilla is the one I worry about the most in the initial stages because I talked about this on the Joe podcast. I do feel like despite the narrative that Joe was so dominant, I think what he is known for is an incredibly valuable quality to have in an ally in terms of basing his game on honesty and loyalty. And I think that people who are savvy enough would want to use Kyle as a prospective shield, considering the fact that he has won. And so that does leave Camilla on the outs. Again, I do not want to project this nightmare scenario of like, well, Kyle won immunity, but we want to make sure we weaken him. So let's make sure we vote off Camilla. But that being said, Camilla has the capabilities to talk herself out of a corner as well. Mm-hmm. Yes, she had Kyle stumping for her during the time where she was technically on the outs of this strong alliance, but it's not like she wasn't making inroads apparently with a Joe as well to make sure that she had a good in. I think she is somebody who is very capable of playing on her own, who has showcased that she has the ability to do so much. That was her entire growth narrative over the course of the first season. And I think the second season, she can continue to grow as well, hopefully playing alongside, some of the biggest players to ever do it. So if she is able to overcome those first couple of pieces of rationale, if she gets to the final level of this metaphoric video game, she could hit the leaderboard.
And like to be so clear, I have so much faith in Camilla to ensure that her tribe does not go to tribal council like there are a lot of very strong people in this cast, and there are a lot of people that are very good at puzzles. But I do think that Camilla of the new era people on this cast is the best at puzzles. And I think that it is going to be a lot of the same puzzles that she has already done. And so she will be able to really get those pieces in place. And so she could help get her tribe through the kind of toughest portion at the early part of the game, which will give her time to make a new number one ally. I feel like there's also an opportunity where people be like, I want to be Camilla's secret partner this time.
I mean, to be fair, impossible. It's not out of the realm of possibility that she's able to sort of pitch the Joe motto, right? Of like, technically, I was so loyal to my number one ally that we agreed to basically root for each other on the jury should one of us get there. Don't you want me in your corner? Don't you want to bring me to the jury? Look what I did for Kyle.
100%. So I wouldn't count her out just yet.
All right. Well, Kirsten, I can count on you to always deliver a great podcast, and this one was no different. Getting the full picture, much like a fully assembled puzzle on Camilla. Anything you'd like to plug for the listeners out there?
Yes, Sasha and I are still doing Mess Magnets, so you can listen to us talk about pop culture, celebrity gossip, trending topics. I think this week we are going to get into a little bit of our Traders thoughts, because guess what? Traders is pop culture. Deal with it. And then you can follow me pretty much everywhere at Kirsten Said What, including twitch.tv/Kirsten Said What. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Of course. Thank you for being here. Next up, we are not getting very far from Camilla. As much as she might want to separate herself from Kyle, the alphabet says differently, as we will be talking about Kyle. We'll be talking about what his perception is as the most recently minted winner, how this relationship with Camilla is also going to be incorporated into that perception, and if he stands a chance of landing a second win here on Survivor 50. But we want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Camilla will be a thriller in season 50? Will she get the $1 million? Let us know. I am really intrigued to see, again, considering that these people just watched her 2 weeks before flying out, how much that's going to ping on their minds versus tabula rasa, erase all that, see what you can do for me on the beach. And if it's the latter, we know that she certainly can. Thank you all so much for listening. Kirsten, thank you so much for your fantastic insights. Until next time, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.